these connections being made here. So just checking in and allowing some people to pop into our feed and check on our space here. One moment. Beautiful. Look, we're live. More options. I'm going to share this on your page to just get this in a couple different places and make sure that we are getting this moving. Just wait for a couple people to pop on. So far, there's not anybody on here yet, so this gives us a perfect time to start sharing. Awesome. Hello, everybody. Beautiful to see you here. And if all goes well, we should also be live on YouTube. I'm just going to double check that that's functioning as well. And hello to everybody on Twitch. And there we are. I have to look for this one. Oops. 1 second. Here we are. I want to make sure I can see the feeds and people's feeds. Wow, welcome everybody. Hello, Colin. I love your mug. It's my favorite mug that you use, the love mug. I'm using my son's Cancer mug. He's a Cancer. And
yeah.
So I'm using it today. Oh my gosh. So we were chatting before we went live about the win of humanity, and how we came into this conversation was the Rittenhouse trial and the realization of information and truth, and what is information and truth, and how is humanity embracing that. And so I think we're going to talk about today, and Colin has a lot to share on this, and on the truth as it resonates through humanity, and how that is creating a timeline that we can actually see even more clearly now that humanity is actually winning this war.
Yeah, we're in a good situation at the moment. People might not believe this, because of the terrible things that are happening on the world, the lockdowns, the vaccine mandates, and all the nonsense that's going on. But in actual fact, if you can take your eyes off the negative and see the positive, people can be so encouraged, because the consciousness of this planet is changing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's necessary for us to go through this time where the deceit and the lies are uncovered and they're opened, and humans can actually see them. Because, as we talked about in our earlier programs about, the history of the planet, it goes back 500 million years, so it's a long history that's been going on. And it has created a certain momentum of energy that kept it stuck in an energetic warp, if I can put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
That humans were not able to get out of. But the ongoing rescue program the rescue mission that's going on, is designed to change the consciousness of humans and change the consciousness of this planet. So, what is consciousness? Consciousness is information.
Mm-hmm.
When you become aware and self-aware, you become consciously aware of yourself. And when you are born incarnated here, when you're born here, you naturally have a self-awareness. You're aware that you're in this body, in this uterus, and you get channeled down a vaginal canal, and then suddenly you're free from the water in your mother's womb, and you into air, empty space, free space, the ether, a different kind of water. And so we have to progress and become consciously aware. But the trouble is, as soon as we exit the womb, we are entered into uh, a matrix of control, where our births are registered as a birth certificate. We are given a name, which is not our natural name, but it's the name our parents conjure up for us. And we registered into a birth registry. And this birth registry creates a document. Um, I'll just call it the trust document. But this trust document creates a bond. Now, what's a bond? A bond is a connection. But, in financial terms, a bond means that you give over something, you give a promise to something or somebody to provide something in the future. And so we've been bonded into the matrix where all our possessions and all we own have been handed over to the king. So we are no longer sovereign free people. We are supplicants to the king. We, and through this process that happens, millions of times on this planet, where every time they come up with a way to supplicate man to the wills of the group that are controlling this planet. I've just been hearing this hissing sound.
Yeah, me too. I just muted myself and unmuted. I couldn't understand what that noise was. Isn't that bizarre?
Yeah, it was
Getting
very
louder
strange.
and louder and louder.
Yeah. Yeah. So this happened many, many times. And then in the late 19th century, the beloved started what they called waves of star seeds and indigos, where beings from other planets volunteered to come here to Earth to teach and help humans to get out of this matrix. So it goes back a long time to the 19th century. And then in 1945, when the US dropped the bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, uh, then a new wave of beings were created, and they were the what a, what might be called the blue wave of indigos,
Mm-hmm.
who were born in the 50s and the late 40s and early 50s, and they became the flower people, the children of peace, the flower power that
The flower
existed.
power. I know there are
Yeah,
3 waves of indigos. Well, there are 3, like indigo 1s, indigo 2s, and then some of us hold an indigo 3 contract. And when the star seeds came down, those were called the Cloister Races. So they consisted of what are there are 12 tribes, and 7 of those are from the Cloister Races, and 5 of those are Earth seeds.
yeah. And the Cloister Races are race groups who over many lifetimes and they're highly evolved beings.
Mm-hmm.
And they tend to cloister themselves, but not in the sense that they go to a monastery and hide away from everyone else. They just don't allow fractious interaction with other beings.
Mm-hmm.
So when other beings enter their space, they won't enter into any kind of dialogue or fractious interaction with them. And there are many races. The race group that I come from are cloistered race. In other words, they've where in their time space continuum, they don't allow any beings from outside the community to enter without vetting.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now, this might remind people about the border control in the US. In fact, we have the same problem in South Africa, where our borders are guarded by our defense force. But our defense force, take bribes and run their own little enterprises at the border to
Mm-hmm.
get people across. But they're not only running people across into South Africa, they're running goods back into Zimbabwe. so, so there's a lot of money to be made with border control. But in South Africa, it's an odd country. But controlling one's own space and one's own sovereign rights is very, very important. And people are beginning to do that
Mm-hmm.
in huge numbers. And that's one of the things that controllers here made a mistake. They didn't understand the extent of the resistance they would get from humans, because they created this monster called COVID-19, and they thought that everyone was going to be afraid of it. But as we've seen with the anti-vaxxer movement, people aren't afraid of it, and for good reason, because statistically, the numbers just don't support a pandemic. This is one of the big lies that they've told us. So it's just one of many, many lies. And
Well,
now
and they keep changing all of this, Colin. They keep changing. You're considered unvaccinated if you're vaccinated, right?
yeah,
So now they're like, well, everyone in the hospital is unvaccinated. No, they're not. They've all been jabbed, most of them, and there's very few that haven't been jabbed. And this is frustrating to me because, talk about getting out of, or talk about like straight injecting a software program into the body. That's exactly what this is. Because their systems are being dismantled on a planetary level. So now they have to get it into the physical body in order to create new ones. But anyway, sorry I interrupted you. That topic, absolutely, like, oof, that one gets me. It's so nefarious. It's so nefarious, and the fact that they went after the children really ramped me up. So
yeah, and it's all an energy war, really, because humans are not aware that they are energy beings, that they create energy. Where does that energy come from? Just think about it. It doesn't come from food. Believe me, it does
no.
not come from food.
No, and this is actually what we're going to talk about in my workshop today. The energy is coming from the ATP, it comes from the mitochondrial DNA, but it doesn't come from the food. That's not what feeds it. It's the
Yeah, yeah. So being in an energy war, it's important for people to understand energy. Now we've been in this long line and long history of being suppressed, and our energies have been kept low and fractious, and so we just keep repeating history. We keep doing the same things over and over and over again. It's just the props and the stage and the narrative changes, but essentially it's still just doing the same thing over and over uh, again. And that's unfortunate because, well, it's unfortunate, but also fortunate. It's fortunate at this time because people are beginning to understand what has been happening to humanity.
Mhm.
And they're beginning to understand that the system we live under has some serious problems in that it takes away from the poor and gives to the rich. Now, what kind of system do humans want on this planet? And if they understand that what the system is doing is moving money from the poor to the rich, to
Yes.
keep the poor poor and to keep the rich rich. And if you can't see that, I mean, if people can't see that, then they can't see anything. There will be no cognitive understanding of what is actually going on this planet. But I think there's a major portion of humanity who are waking up to this. And in an energy war, you need a collective effort. It's not just the effort of one person, it's a collective effort. And what I'm seeing at the moment is there is a collective effort on this planet to, first of all, expose the lies, and secondly, to offer an alternative to the lies, and then thirdly, to understand who the liars are and who the liars are not. Who's lying here? Somebody's lying, because what we have on this planet is chaos. Who created this chaos? Well, liars. The liars create this chaos.
I love
Because
that
they
you
can,
said that in harmony both
yeah.
times. Oh my gosh. So what plan have you been seeing implemented, alternative, to use your word, what alternative has been implemented for humanity to be able to expose the liars?
Well, we're in the stage of the rescue mission where our beloved soul families are watching what is happening, and they're wanting humans to respond to what is happening, because they can't intervene here directly, because it's against universal protocol, and you can't have a clean system if you infiltrate it with dirty water. So they want to keep the system clean, but they are depending on humans to do what we are doing, and we're doing it pretty well.
Mhm.
All over the world, yesterday there were hundreds of thousands of people in different protest meetings.
And you don't
In
get to see this. Like you have to really search to find this, but not as hard as you used to have to search. So it is spilling over into the mainstream media, and it's like the constructs are breaking down, and I'm loving this. I am.
yeah, yeah. I don't know if I'm sure you've heard of the hundredth monkey principle,
Yes.
and that's where we headed towards. Is
Mhm.
that one person who joins this collective, because it's like a wave. A wave needs momentum, and it gains momentum as more water behind the wave joins the wave, because the front of the wave is being resisted by the waves returning, and the wave carries on, and then you get the wave, water behind the wave joining the wave, and it goes up and up and up, and it creates a big wave.
Mhm.
And in a sense, that's what's happening on this planet. It's about momentum to create a total a consciousness shift on the planet. Now, consciousness on the planet is changing slowly, but having said that, I'm seeing that in my courses, the people taking my courses, they are in the resistance.
Mhm.
They want to know the truth.
Yes.
And so they are supporting this momentum that is arising on that is developing on this planet. And I think it's just, as I said, the hundredth monkey. It's just going to take a certain momentum, and then that wave will collapse. And when it collapses, it's going to create an enormous splash.
Yep. So, to everybody who thinks, and I was one of them in the past, that my voice didn't matter. Your voice matters, because every voice matters. Every song we sing, every breath we take, even if it's just in your consciousness, to maybe it's not your place to go out and join a march, but maybe it's in your place to sit at home and energetically support those who are out there protesting, because that too is a voice, just as
Yeah.
much as somebody is a boots on the ground. You can be a boots in the etheric ground and still make a change. So, finding where your voice is best going to serve humanity, uh, it'll
Yeah.
definitely make a difference.
Yeah. And like yesterday, I noticed that all the protests were peaceful.
Mhm.
That's important. I don't, people will do any good to go out there and be violent and be, you know, antagonistic and, cause anyone any harm, because only the weak do that. Weak people use weak solutions.
Mm.
And weak solutions on this planet is to beat the opponents down to a pulp and hope that they stop resisting. Well, that is not the way of the universe. The way of the universe is to be confident in ourselves and to create the momentum that we need in order to move it on. And, you know, I had a terrible week this last week, where we have load shedding in South Africa. They call it load shedding, but it actually is. It's just our power utility is incapable of providing us with electricity 24 hours a day. So they cut off the energy to certain parts of the country every day, and they have the load shedding stage one, which cuts off 2.5 hours of your power. They have load shedding two, which cuts off you know 5 hours of your power. Load shedding three, which cuts off 7.5 hours of your power, and then that load shedding four. Well, this last week we had load shedding four, where you have 10 hours of your day you don't have electricity. And during that time, also when the power came on, which often happens anywhere, we had a power surge, and my uh, Wi-Fi router got wiped out,
Oh my gosh.
and I couldn't replace it, immediately. So I had to wait until it was replaced. So I was without power, without internet, and in this maelstrom of negativity on our planet, of being deprived of our freedoms, and our and to be able to function normally as a human being. And then all this crap comes along as well. Well, I did an exercise when it hit me. I said, I'm going to go back and just imagine myself as a caveman. If I was a caveman, I had no electricity, what would it feel like? I said, well, I wouldn't be affected at all because the caveman didn't have electricity. So I said, well, let me look around. And I went to my grocery cupboard, opened up, there was food. And I went to my refrigerator, and there was food. And I said, hey, I'm way ahead of that caveman.
Way ahead. It's
It's just
amazing. Go ahead.
your consciousness. Do you want to embrace the depravity in which you live, or do you want to embrace the abundance that you have?
I love that. I love that. We've come to it by design, to be able to divide and conquer. And this isn't just to divide and conquer humanity, this is to divide and conquer the consciousness. So
Yeah.
we've become dependent upon our electronics. We've become dependent upon cooking things electrically, or using gas, or whatever it is, and everything is outside of us instead of searching inside. And I did a 58-hour fast, and I was thinking to myself this whole time about how we have everything we need inside of us. When I'm hungry, what can I do to satiate my body? What is my body doing when I don't have the food? And what would I do if I didn't have water? I started thinking, how would I clean my water? How would I distill water? And just realizing that everything that is outside of us takes us away from the inside. And I think that that's, I mean, it kind of sucks that your power would be shut down for like 10 hours, but at the same time, it's kind of a blessing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. You can see it both ways, as a curse or a blessing. And so I decided to bless myself rather than curse myself, and just looked at things from a positive perspective, and realized, hey, I'm not that bad off. I'm actually doing okay.
Mhm.
We are being challenged enormously at this time, everybody. And I really want to encourage people to have confidence, to have trust in their abilities, and to see that things are not always going to be this way. In fact, this week I was reviewing while I had so much downtime from the internet, just sitting in meditation. And I reminded myself of the many lies we've been told here. You know, because the earth is not round, but it's not flat either. What we see out there is what we create in there.
Mm.
And people are going to have a hard time discovering that they are actually in control of their own experiences and their own, responses to those experiences. So, the flat earthers have got some very valid points about what they are saying, you know, because if you look at the earth is like a toroid, which is round on the edges but flat on the surface. Now, what is that flat plane? And it has a flat plane on top and above. So you have the matter earth on top, and you have the antimatter earth. And this toroid that holds them together is an electromagnetic field of energy that works in opposite direction, and that holds the field together. And the what we experience as consciousness is we all have our own toroidal field, which is our soul body. It's like a toroid. The earth is a toroid. And you have this energy exchange going on around consciousness and conscious beings. And when I look at the sun, and that reminded me of what I experienced on Sirius B. When I got there, I said, "Where am I?" And I said, you know, they told me where I was, but it didn't make any sense to me because they termed it in terms of vectors and sectors of the universe. So I didn't really understand. I said, "Well, if you blue aliens, aren't you on Sirius B?" And they looked at me and said, "Well, you call it Sirius B, but that's the name you've given it to it. It's not Sirius B. It's actually just a different time space continuum. But you create the stars. All the stars you see in your sky, humans create. The earth sun, well, the sun, earth, and humans, all consciousness on the planet, create this wonderful orbital structure we have around us called the stars. And who are the stars? We are the stars. That don't actually exist. Now,
That's a
now
really,
that,
I've never thought to look at it the way you're explaining it. So this is really new information.
yeah, that most people are going to have a great deal of difficulty in understanding that the universe out there is as big as the universe that's in there.
Yes. Yes.
That every cell in your body is a replica of the entire program of the universe.
Mhm.
And when there's a fault or miasm or, hurt in any part, any cell in your body, it has a corresponding reflection or projection into the reality we experience. So it's as above, so below. The macro and the micro world. How they actually work. So why I'm telling you this is because people are going to have their consciousness so disrupted because that we've been fed so many lies.
Right.
And the big lie is that that we are humans and that's all we are. We're far greater than that. We are energy beings, we're sovereign beings, we're eternal beings. People are afraid of death. Yeah, I find that ridiculous because death is an illusion, just like life is an illusion. You
Yes.
know, you, the illusion is you come onto the stage in this holographic reality. You live for a certain period of time and then you die. Now, in other time-space continuum, you decide when you enter that stage and when you get off the stage.
Mhm.
You decide when your birth happens and when your death happens. It's up to you. So you live. Some of these beings that I've encountered have been, they thousands, hundreds of thousands of years old, and they've managed to stay within their manifest bodies for a long period of time. But if they decide they'd like to have a change of scenery or a change of experiences, they can drop their bodies. And that's called Bardoa, where you drop your body and go and have different experiences. So this notion that we live for 70 years and then die is a total illusion, in fact.
And uh, I've been saying for a while we're living longer, better, and I think that's because it's the awareness of consciousness, the awareness of who and what we are. When I was younger, I always imagined the universe in the shape of a human, and that ourselves included were stars. So like not just like us, but everything was a star inside that shape of a human. Isn't that funny? That's just how I always pictured it. And that each person raising their consciousness would then uh, be able to shift to a different dimensional reality. So like for me to hold this body, I mean, it's very dense here, and being able to move into which puts, it shortens the lifespan of the physical body. And this is really curious. Somebody actually has a question here too that I'm going to send your way. But as we move into the next dimensional, as the Earth moves into its next resonance, is that automatically going to mean that we live longer? Because the quarantines are done. Like we can come in and out now. So they can't trap us. And I mean, some people by default will be trapped because they don't know how to get out of it. but it's open source at this point. So how with that coming into the next, is everybody going to come up to resonance, or and be able to understand this, live longer in a, because these are still dense bodies no matter what. This is more dense than being somewhere else. Are they going to be able to all live longer, or the ones that stay trapped? Does that mean they're going on? Is that what the bifurcation is? That the ones that can't get out of that loop are going to stay on that lower timeline in those really dense, short-lived bodies?
Yeah. Well, it's all about energy and about the frequencies of waves. And time is just a sequential series of events that are carried in a wave of sound. Okay, and so we live in a universe filled with light and sound waves, and they go in certain directions and they work in a certain way. And humanity, because the controllers here can't control all of time, they can only control what is called the low density timelines. That's why they attack, low density planes, like Earth is a three-dimensional, it's low density plane. So they have a lot of control over that. And so as we raise our consciousness, we are able to go onto a different timeline. Now, as I've explained before, we have 1,728 different possibilities that emerge from a single event in any moment in time. So you can just imagine that once you've passed one moment in time, you're going to the next moment in time, you have another 1,728, and they all link into each other. So time is, you know, it, time is an illusion. Space is an illusion.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, all time is simultaneous and all space is in the same space. It's the consciousness that creates all this stuff out there. It doesn't exist. It exists within us.
Yes, it's amazing to me, and it's just to sit on those words and listen to them over and over again until you get these little moments or glimpse, and you get a little glimpse of reality, and just start collecting those little glimpses until it all comes in. I just want to give a shout out to Deborah on YouTube. She has tried so hard to catch one of our lives, and this is the first live she's been able to catch. So welcome, Deborah. Thank you for being here. And Dan has a question for you, Colin. Dan is asking, do we have a hollow Earth where energy enters the North Pole and exits the South Pole?
Well, there are two questions there, really. Is, do we have a hollow Earth, and does energy enter the North Pole and exit the South Pole? Well, I'll deal with the second one first. Because of the toroidal nature of Earth, that's exactly what a toroid does. It creates a vacuum in the center, a void of no energy, just like a hurricane. In the center of the hurricane, it's this still point. And in a toroid, you also have that still point. Now, that still point is a portal between toroids.
Yes.
And keeping that still point aligned with one's own authenticity and one's own energy allows one to communicate with other beings in the universe. So that explains that one, hopefully. And the other one is the Earth hollow. Well, there are many aspects to the Earth that humankind are not aware of. The Earth is not a solid mass. First of all, the Earth is a sentient being, and it has a soul structure, just like anything that manifestly exists has a soul structure. Because if it didn't have a soul structure, it wouldn't exist. Because the soul structure creates the manifest physicality that you appear as. So the Earth is a sentient being that has a soul structure that appears as an Earth, but all the humans that are, all the souls on the Earth contribute to the total structure that people become aware of. So, so there are many layers to the Earth. The Earth is not solid. And what we've been told about the Earth, about having different layers, and, in the Earth, in the center, there's a fiery ball that may one day explode, all that crap that they talk about, is not true. The Earth is, in fact, like, it's almost like a beehive structure. It's not totally hollow, but it has passageways and hollowness within its structure. So there are many beings who live underneath the Earth. In fact, if after the first disaster on the Earth, the Great Fall of Earth, many beings fled to Hollow Earth. After the destruction of Atlantis and Lemuria, many of those beings moved to Hollow North. And to move to Hollow North, they had to go north or south, because you enter Hollow Earth from the poles. Now, each of the poles has, the North Pole has a no-fly zone. So it has an area about, I think, 1 mile in diameter, where aeroplanes are not allowed to travel into that space. Now, why is that? And it's, we've been lied to thoroughly here about it. I've been into places in the Earth that are more beautiful than what we have on surface planet Earth. And the people there are, but I should add that not all the beings there are savory.
That's a really good way of putting it. They're not all savory. I think that's really fantastic way to put it, actually. When I go into the center of the Earth, as you said, this is where, the 0 point. And this is what I call the unmanifest. So from this space where it's really silent there and feels really good. And this is definitely where we can then create portals or locate the portals to go to other planetary systems. And I use the, I guess, is it the hexahedron, or I can see the planet as a hexagon. So I can see those beehive structures. And it always makes it easier for me if I use, instead of just like a tetrahedron, or I use a hexahedron when I'm spinning my Merkaba, because it feels better, I guess, for me when we're doing planetary work or connecting to the Earth, is to really hold her signature. And I think that's important for us to understand just a little bit, just a little basics. You guys take some of Colin's courses, understand a little bit of the basics of our structure, and how once we put our mind into even just a picture, like just picturing a hexagon and understanding that connects to Earth and that you are Earth, it'll immediately change the way you feel, the way your body feels, and the resonance that you have with it. So, well, I hope that answered your question, Dan. So, yeah, and we're still moving to true north, because we were knocked off. So we are still actually moving. So the North and South Pole aren't really, as to say, our truths are all effed up. Our history is all effed up. And I do have faith that is all coming out. Our true mathematical systems, our true, the truth of the history of humanity, of the earth, of all this stuff, I really truly have faith that it's going to come out. And time is an illusion. So does it come out during the lifetime that I'm here, that you're here? I don't know, but it's going to come out. And that's the important part. We can see that happening. I think sooner than later, though.
Yeah, the big problem, though, with on Earth, information is compartmentalized. So you have different subjects that you learn at school, and when you go to university, you specialize in a certain field, and you get this compartmentalized information. So somebody studying engineering won't know anything, won't know very much won't know very much about Shakespeare or the arts, the great artists of this planet. So this whole method of separating consciousness on this planet is endemic in our educational system.
Mm-hmm.
What is going to happen on this planet is once we enter into this realization, create this great wave of energy that when it collapses, what it's going to do, it doesn't, the, the energy doesn't collapse. It goes back into unity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what a wave does. When it collapses, it goes back into unity. And when we go back into unity, we get rid of the separation consciousness. And then all knowledge is available to everyone. And that's the problem. Because consciousness is derived from information. And when all that information comes flooding in from the universe, it's going to affect people in very, very strange ways.
Yes.
And
And
some people who are not able to receive that information will unfortunately not benefit from it.
yeah, it does, it can and does create schisms, uh, which is unfortunate. So the best that we can do, each and every one of us, this is again why your voice is so important. Share what you can, little pieces at a time. Begin to help prepare people around you, not out of pushing, not commanding that they know, but very gentle. There are really gentle ways to express truth to people. And even if it's just truth as you know it in the moment, you're getting closer and closer to truth, each and every one of us. So ask lots of questions. Invite your friends, your family, everybody to ask questions. Why is that? Where does that come from? Is this mine? Is this yours? Yeah, it's definitely, you can see people seeing things that they all of a sudden seeing spaceships. Like we have so many cloaking devices all around us. People are seeing spaceships. They're seeing timelines simultaneously running together because of different choices they have taken in a different timeline and all these crazy things. And it's creating schisms everywhere. People are kind of losing their minds, but it's going to work itself out. And it's only like 5,500 years ago was when we still had our consciousness. That was, I think, the last time we actually, as a humanity, knew who we were, where we were from, and all that stuff. So it's really not been that long, but we've been in a prison, I think, long enough. And I think that humanity, it's like a little hole got poked into our consciousness, and it just took that one monkey to go, wait, what is this?
Yeah. Yeah, as I said at the beginning of the show, I'm very optimistic about what I see happening on the planet. I have to add that when I started waking and started learning about the universe, it literally, I had to give up all notions of what I thought to be real. and all notions of what I thought was reality. And when you do that, and that's going to happen to people, you cannot hang on to uh, a finite system when you go into the infinite. And that's just the way it is. The universe is just a great big conscious mind that consists of information, and it just goes. And it's the little bits of consciousness in that big, ball of consciousness that have choices to make. And when they find themselves in those difficult situations, they have to make a choice that is either self-fulfilling or self-defeating. And that's what humanity is facing. Is, do we make self-fulfilling choices or self-defeating choices? And unfortunately, not everyone's going to make a self-fulfilling choice. Many people are going to make self-defeating choice, which is their right to do. We don't have to feel bad about the choices other people make. That's their choice. What we have to be aware of is the choices that we are making and how we make those choices and who benefits.
I love that. Honoring other people's choices, whether you agree with them or not, I think I'm a little more forward about that. And because our thoughts can be impressed upon people and we can mess up their energy constructs. And once we're aware of that, I think that it's important for each of us to be responsible for ourselves and not worry about what other people are doing. Except unless we're dealing with the controller groups, then of course we're going to worry about what they're doing because we're breaking out of their old constructs. So I guess that's kind of sounds a little bit like a double talk, but there's a difference there.
Yeah, so thank you very much for this opportunity to share with all the viewers. And tonight I decided to give out some information which I kind of spoke to my higher selves about whether I should begin to speak about this. And they said, okay, go ahead and speak about it. But there are so many different layers of information. And unfortunately, humans are being kept in this compartmentalized psyche of limitation that doesn't allow them to expand their consciousness into higher dimensions. And it works in a particular way, and I know how it works. And I'm hopeful that many will take up this challenge to break out of this narrow, limiting way of living and start to expand their consciousness, expand their minds, expand their activities, expand their views of how they view life, to become curious about things again and say, like you said early on, how does that work? How does that work? We have so many questions, but in the universe, the answer only arrives once the question is asked. And that's what I was taught early on in my waking up. They said, I started asking questions, and they said, well, it's good that you ask questions because the answer only arrives after you ask the question. So I just kept asking questions, question, and the answers did arrive. But if you're not able to formulate a question, the answer will never arrive.
I agree. There's a strict, I guess, non-interfere clause. Is that what it was? Clause. That is that our teams or our soul family is really not allowed to interfere with our soul growth. But when we ask direct questions, the answers will definitely be there. So start writing them down. And sometimes they're not questions that are relevant or not questions that can be answered. That's okay. You know, they'll be answered in time. You can come back and ask the question or reword the question. But you're going to be supported when you ask to be supported.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I learned during my time with the higher dimensional beings that asking questions is very important. And they reminded me of a time when I was 5 years old and my family were going to have a barbecue after church, and they'd invited some friends over. And one of our friends had brought us a gift, which was a globe of the earth spinning around. And I was only 5 years old, and all the kids were looking at this globe, and we were trying to make, where's South Africa? Where's South Africa? And we found South Africa on the globe. We said, there it is. But for me, at 5 years old, we were on the bottom of the earth. And so I went outside, and I was bent down and looking between my legs. My mother said to me, what are you doing? I said, I'm looking. Why aren't the people falling off the planet?
I love it. I love kids. Oh my God.
And they said that was a very, very important question because that goes down a long, deep rabbit hole. When you get the answer to that question, then you will understand. But asking the question is very, very important. So if you have curious children, please love them and just keep giving them answers. Thank them for the questions. Because whether you give the answer or somehow the answer arrives, the question creates the answer in our consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how wild that question might be, like how many universes are there? Is there a multiverse? Uh, you know, what is stars? What is the sun? What is the moon? What is it really? What is this planet we're on? What is it really? Who are all these people? And if we stop asking questions, we stop getting answers. And we are the answer to our own question when we ask uh, the question. So it's very important for us to keep asking questions.
Never stop being curious.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. Well, my goodness. I'm cheering on humanity. I'm seeing massive change. I love everything that I'm seeing. I know that it's challenging, and there are quite a few people not brought up to speed yet, but they're going to be. Just have faith, be kind, trust, smile at people when you see them, put your feet on the earth, ask questions, and breathe.
Yeah. Yeah. And I look at it this way that challenges are there, just there to help us to refine our souls.
Yeah.
And our response to the challenges will add value to our souls if we respond in the right way. you know but the problem is we've never learned what the effect is, because they're long effects of doing the wrong thing. It's called karma. It goes out into the universe and it keeps coming back. And if you keep doing the same thing over and over, it's going to keep coming back. And it's up to us to break that cycle.
Yeah. It comes back faster and faster. It's like instant karma these days, just like instant manifestation is
Yeah,
happening. So,
yeah.
my goodness. Well, my friend, we are we are at an hour. So, wow. I feel hopeful. Today I feel really hopeful for humanity. And we've had a very powerful weekend, powerful activations happening, and it's just going to continue. It's going to continue in a positive uh, wave. And so here comes consciousness.
Yeah. I think we have every reason to be confident and optimistic about the future, because if we look back 2 years ago and how much the world has changed, could we have imagined the opposition that we have now to a series of mandates that are being given by our governments to humans? 2 years ago, we would probably have thought, well, everyone's going to obey the government. That's the law. If the government says something, that's the law. But people say, no, 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 no. I have my rights, and I will stand my truth, and I will stand my right.
Yep.
I'm not going to give it to a government. And this is yeah, this is where the rubber meets the road. Where consciousness comes out of this friction between tire and road. As we move along, it's going to get hot, and that's okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. And this is honor, trust, believe, hope, kindness, love.
Yeah.
All right, my friend, I love you so much. Speaking of love, and I can't wait to see you again next week.
Much love to you too. Love all the folks here. I have the most awesome Facebook community.
Yeah.
They're so kind and loving and pay attention and are willing to explore their own minds, and it's really great for me. But also having the show with you on Sunday evenings is also um, a wonderful way for me to express what I know, in a safe environment amongst a great community.
Thank you. And it's my beginning of the day and your end of the day. So we are like in balance. I love it. And I
Yeah.
love each of you out there. Thank you for always being here and supporting and for asking questions and just for holding space. So I'm sending so much love to everybody, and we'll see you all next week.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Love you.